This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual. Ladies and gentlemen, the host of WEBIT Virtual, Dr. Plamen Russev.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to WEBIT Virtual's Thought Leadership Summit on Brand Innovation Week. Such a great week was this week. We had a fantastic startup challenge with 3 truly amazing founders and their groundbreaking work. One of them, of course, was the winner, and they will be winning the opportunity to be part of the Founders Games $1 million challenge, the world's biggest startup challenge produced by WEBIT, and to be able to have a free exhibition stand and full access to our investors pool. Yesterday, we had a wonderful panel with 4 leading media representatives and coaches. And we've learned new things, but above all, we've shared. We've shared knowledge, we've shared ideas, and we've shared things that we believe can make brands not only survive, but excel in the post-COVID time and during the crisis we live in. Today is a special day because we have real thought leadership discussion with 3 people who will share, ask, and give ideas on where the brand innovation is heading and how can brands never miss a chance of a crisis. Let me introduce you without further ado our first participant in the panel. He says, doing, not learning to do is the essence of entrepreneurship. Look who is he.
Guy Kawasaki is the chief evangelist of Canva and the creator of Guy Kawasaki's Remarkable People podcast. He is a brand ambassador for Mercedes-Benz and an executive fellow of the Haas School of Business and adjunct professor of the University of New South Wales.
Guy, welcome. How are you? We are truly honored to have you with us.
Oh, the honor is all mine. I am in California. There's no clouds in the sky, so life is good.
People thought you were in our virtual studio.
Well, mentally, that's where I am. Physically, I'm in California.
No, thank you so much for joining, Guy. We have so many questions for you, and our social media channels are open. By the way, just a reflection, #WEBIT for Twitter or any other channel you're using for all the questions to the participants in our discussion today. Guy, it's been a while, and I'm truly honored to have you with us. We've been discussing this participation for a while, and here we are. Instead of making it real, in person, the magic of technology, it's virtual.
Yep.
And I have my question for you, and it goes beyond the topic of brand innovation.
Okay.
I want to ask you a personal question. How does COVID-19 crisis helped you excel, innovate, reinvent your own brand? Because Guy Kawasaki is a brand itself.
First, you're making the assumption that it did help. Don't get me.
I'm pronoic, very positive.
Don't get me wrong. I think it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge for me. I think it's been a challenge for everybody. No one that I know has faced such a challenge. So having said that, you can only react and do things. You can't just stand still. So one of the things that I've done is I've had to figure out how to do virtual appearances much better. I used to do 50 to 75 in-person speeches a year, and now I'm doing 0. I don't intend to get on an airplane until there's a vaccine. So this has forced me how to set up videos, set up cameras, do all these kind of things, participate in social media even more, do live LinkedIn, live Instagram, live Twitter, live everything. And when all the dust settles and someday there is a vaccine, I'll be better for it because of the skills. This is assuming I don't get infected, because of the skills I've had to learn. So it's a forcing mechanism. This is a time where we have to learn to do new things. And, looking at it as an optimist, we now have time to learn new things. Back when, before the pandemic, there was always something else to do. There was always another priority. But now, man, I'm getting back 2 hours a day of not commuting. So I have to invest those 2 hours in something, and I'm learning new skills.
Well, you see, it's if we start positive, it's the positive answer. If I ask you how did COVID damage you, then it would have been a different story. So I'm happy that you feel like you have enhanced your skills, even though I never thought you were missing that type of skills socially and using videos, etc. I mean, Guy Kawasaki is on each and everyone's desk if they do marketing or screen when they're watching your appearances. So having you now here, I will ask you all the questions that I believe our audience would like to hear.
Okay.
We are looking at the numbers. We start humble. Let's see, where are we heading to? We have over 8,000 registered for this particular panel, which was supposed to be on Tuesday. And now here we are. So our questions for you are a broad range from my team. But the first one is, should brands try to maintain a lofty exclusive positioning?
Not in my opinion. I think that right now the question is survival. And survival basically turns into cash. So cash is king, cash is queen, prince, princess, emperor, president, everything. Cash is it. And so to very simplify the matter, you can try to preserve a lofty brand, protect your channels, or you can turn your inventory into cash. And right now, I'm telling you, turn your inventory into cash, because it's all about survival. And the worst thing that can happen to your brand is you die. Duh. So if you look right now, take an exclusive brand like Dyson. So Dyson makes these great fans and these great vacuum cleaners and stuff, and just the highest end of this kind of consumer product. You can find Dyson discounted all over the place, because I happen to know this because I'm about to buy a vacuum cleaner, because I'm at home so much I can't stand a dirty floor. So if you also go to Amazon, and there are brand new, recently announced Apple iPads on sale. So, wrap your mind around that. When is the last time you saw a new iPad design or new Apple anything on sale at Amazon? And so if Apple can do it and Dyson can do it, I saw an ad for Levi Strauss jeans, 50% off site-wide. So if Levi can do it and Apple can do it and Dyson can do it, you can do it.
Guy, wise words. And there's no one is actually really safe of the tornado out there. Yesterday I was talking to a friend who is a major player in a pharma industry, and he told me that all around Europe the pharmacies are kind of empty, and that means less revenue. And who would have thought? And we thought that the pharmacies would be like the only place people go in and out all the time. So it's like very, very unexpected and very unpredicted. I believe these two words are kind of shaping the reality around us these days. And I don't know for how long it will last, but will definitely be a big challenge for brands. And before we continue with you, I would like to invite our next guest to join the discussion, because he is representing one of the world's biggest brands. Look who is he.
Vivek Bapat is Senior Vice President, Marketing and Communications at SAP. By combining a general manager mindset with end-to-end marketing and communications expertise, Vivek works with internal and external C-suite and executive leaders to advance SAP's brand position, create new market opportunities, and lead global digital transformation and execution.
Vivek, welcome.
Hi,
Thank you for
how are you,
joining.
Plamen?
I am
You're
very
welcome. Of
well
course,
and very grateful for being with us and supporting WEBIT as being one of our brand innovation impact community members and advisors. Thank you so much for this, Vivek.
yeah, of course, and thank you for the honor of inviting me up, obviously, and I'm so pleased to be able to be with you and Guy and Karen to share some of the ideas and thoughts and some of what we are seeing as one of the top global brands in the world. And just to follow up what I think Guy was talking about, we are in service to many of these very, very significant brands, on a global scale. So we do see a lot of what other brands are doing, and then obviously there's a lot of things that that we are doing in support of helping our customers and the communities around us, including our employees.
Just for the record, Vivek, I'm not sure if all our attendees, virtual attendees, that's a lapsus. I've been having 15,000 attendees in front of me at the live WebEx, and here we are now with the virtual ones. But I'm not sure if all of them are aware that SAP is servicing over 300,000 clients all around the world. I think it was 340,000, but everything above 300,000 sounds huge anyway. Is that right, Vivek?
Yeah, so for those of you, many of you, I'm sure in the audience are familiar with SAP, but for those of you who are not, we are basically serving close to 450,000 plus customers globally, small, mid-size, as well as large companies.
450.
We are,
Small mistake.
we're in about 180 different countries. We have more than 100,000 employees. We have a global ecosystem that spans more than 21,000 partners. So I think it's safe to say that we are a very significant brand of consequence, and given the global that we have achieved over the over 50 years of being in business, we've seen a lot of change happen. And so I think that particular position gives us visibility into a lot of different nuances that we're seeing, globally, in terms of what companies might need, what their customers and their employees might need. And so I'm happy to, talk about some of the things that we are doing around this particular topic.
Definitely, Vivek.
Yeah.
And now I would like to have a question for both of you with Guy. We already have almost 9,000 people with us. I can guess why they're here, because the weight of knowledge and know-how you bring to our beautiful community of Digerati from all around the world is a wealth. And let's start bringing that wealth to them. Let's talk about brand purpose with both of you. How do you think brands are reconsidering, should they reconsider their profit purpose ratio in a crisis like COVID? And do you think that this will be a new trajectory in the future? Maybe to start with Vivek as a representative of SAP, and then Guy as a representative of Canva, but also as someone who's been leading this field of being enchanting and but now in a crisis time. How does it work? Vivek, please start first.
Yeah, sure. So from my perspective, purpose and profit are both intertwined. In other words, if you are a company that is a for-profit company, those profits enable you to do purpose-related, purposeful activities for the communities and your employees and the customers that you serve. Conversely, if you don't do those purposeful activities, you don't have a customer base. You don't have a community that you can serve. So those two things are intertwined, and they play very, very well together. And so I don't think that there's a choice. The choice that companies were confronted with in the past, which is, should I pursue profit or should I pursue purpose? Those were false choices. And more what we are realizing is that companies have to do both in order to not just sustain themselves, but to thrive moving forward. And I would say that this particular crisis has really underscored the need for companies that are demonstrating purpose in a very authentic way in terms of how they serve, their communities. So I think that, like I said, they are intertwined together. They're absolutely part of the same, way that companies need to think about what they deliver into this world.
Guy, would you agree, disagree? What would you add to that?
Well, I basically would agree that,
That's easy.
Yeah. Well, okay. Next question. I think that there is a false dichotomy that you have to pick between doing good and making money. And those are not the two mutually exclusive goals. You can do good and make money. You could also lose money while trying to make money. So the goal obviously is to do good while making money. And I think that is all about taking the high road, that this pandemic will come to an end at some point. There'll be a vaccine. And at that point, you don't want your brand to be remembered for doing, sort of either tasteless or dangerous things. So for example, with United Airlines stuffing that airplane, that picture was a lot worse than the guy singing about how United breaks guitars, right? Because breaking your guitar is one thing, but stuffing everybody into that plane. And so my recommendation in a phrase is you have to take the high road. I mean, if there was ever a time to take the high road, it is now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Guy.
Maybe one thing I would add is I think, we are all dealing with this particular pandemic at the moment. So all eyes are on the issues that we are confronted with today. But there have been serious issues that have happened in the past as well. And so sometimes it's useful to look at history and see, what have other companies done and what have some successful brands done in order to navigate themselves through the crisis. And there are some great examples, whether it is, the case of P&G during the Great Recession, where people didn't have the means to buy anything outside of the bare essentials, and soap became a necessity for everybody. And so what does P&G do? Obviously, they are in the business of soap, but they also moved their brand communications into radio and created these serials or episodes on radio, which we now know as soap operas. So I think if you look at what companies have done, many companies have very smartly and authentically identified what is the need of the day from the constituents that they serve those needs in a very authentic way, and have actually created and improved their brand presence that they have sustained for not just a couple of years, but for decades to come. And there are lots of examples like this, whether it was World War I or World War II. There are lots of companies that have done this type of work. And you see some of what is happening even now, which is you see companies like Walmart, for instance, or Amazon. These are companies that are actually thriving in these types of situations.
Vivek, and this is again a question to you, but I would love to hear, Guy, do you think that COVID-19 has branded the century? How long do you think it's going to last? And what should brands do? Because obviously it's this uncertainty is what makes all of us stand on standby, maybe learning new skills like Guy mentioned, etc. But still, we're like on standby. Or you're not at SAP, I don't know. Vivek?
Well, I mean, we're certainly not on standby, right? I think what we have quickly recognized is what do our customers need? So if you think about who it is that we're serving, number one, our priority was to make sure that our employees were safe. So we did all of the things related to making sure that employees could work from home and that they had the resources that they need. Because frankly, if you don't have employees, you don't have a business, right? So that was number one. Number two, we look at our customers and what is it that customers want. So whether it is solutions in terms of managing their people, managing their supply chain, or just even maintaining business continuity, what we did was we came up with technological and solutions and free offers that would help our customers go through this change in a successful way. And then thirdly, we wanted to make sure that we are serving our communities. So whether it's in the form of a donation that we made to the World Health Organization, the CDC, or participating in very specific hackathons to either solve the problem related to PPE or help people come back to their home countries, for instance, in the case of Germany, or even today, we've been commissioned by the German government to work with Deutsche Telekom to create a contact tracing application, for all German citizens. So I think clearly from our perspective, this is not a time for us to just stand still and watch what is happening. This is a time for us to move forward and actually take action in the most meaningful, relevant, and authentic way. So that's what we've been doing. And there's, again, plenty of examples like this all over the world.
Thank you, Vivek. I would love to hear some personal lessons from you later. But Guy,
Yes.
what is your take on that?
Sure. So my take on that is generally in life, pandemic or not, you're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. I mean, it's kind of that simple. And so the time is now to be part of the solution. And everybody's talking about reopening the economy and all that, as if you can do that via a political decision, that the president or the governor or the mayor says, okay, now we're open. I don't think that's the gating item in the recovery. The gating item in the recovery is that people, normal people, not politics, not politicians, but normal people mentally think it is safe to go out and shop and eat and interact. And so it's not because they woke up one day and CNN or MSNBC or even Fox said, we're open. It's the mental situation that I now feel safe to go out and fly and all that. So I think ultimately people are going to decide when the economy is going to reopen, not our leadership. And if you go with that assumption, I think, the efforts of SAP to make this tracking and contact tracking thing and, testing, the data in testing, all those kinds of efforts are what's going to reopen the economy. It's when people feel safe. That's the key.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Guy. Thank you so much, Vivek, because that kind of wraps up so much. I mean, uncertainty, certainty, at the end of the day, it's about values, adding value, and integrity, both moral and intellectual in the times of crisis. Let's talk about your personal lessons. We have 9,000 people still with us. Obviously, what we are talking makes a lot of sense for all of them being with us. So let's move on like this. I never thought I'm going to turn into a publisher. Now I'm looking for every person online, making sure everyone's happy with the content. Stay with us. But that's our community. So Vivek, a question for you, and then again to Guy. And please, feel free to get into a discussion. I would love to hear more of you. So you're both great leaders. That's unquestionable. Vivek, you're a leader within one of the largest organizations in the world. What are the personal lessons that you've learned from this crisis, which, as Guy said in the beginning, there was no one else in the world, I believe, before us, in people on that planet now that have been going through, and they still remember. Those of above 100, maybe they have some vague memories. But so, what are your lessons?
Yeah, so there's a number of lessons, and I think from my perspective, you said it already, which is these types of situations force you to reconcile with what your value system is. And I think your value system emerges once you start becoming introspective. So there's a few things that that I have learned, which is that, there are lots of people who are impacted by this crisis in different ways, right? So you have to be able to understand and empathize the fact that, what you might personally, for instance, think as a non-issue might be a pretty significant issue, because there's a lot of things that are going on in people's lives outside of work. And what this particular crisis has done is it has brought both of those worlds together in a way that has really never happened before. And so I think from my perspective, leading with empathy is the very first thing. And you have to lead with empathy. You have to know what your true north is. At the same time, communication is absolutely essential. And, one of the great leaders that I followed over my career said this very, very eloquently, which is the things that are worth communicating are often always under communicated, right? And I think in this particular day and age, especially when you're leading a global team with different issues, and we see this pandemic actually impacting different countries differently, different age groups as well as demographics differently. You have to be able to understand the nuances and be empathetic in the way that you lead. Now, the second thing is you have to be very objective and candid about the real situation. So you have to be clear about what's going on. You cannot just sugarcoat what the issues actually might be. So there has to be a clarity in terms of how you communicate. And there's got to be a consistency in terms of how you communicate as well. So a few things that we have done is, personally done, is made sure that I have one-on-one connections with everybody, as many people as I can, and that I'm sincere and genuine in not just listening to their needs and concerns at the time, but being vulnerable and sharing my own issues. So I think that kind of creates the dialogue, and it creates that style of leadership where we know that we're in this together, and we know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel as well, and we're going to go through it together, and we're going to be successful at the end of it.
Thank you, Vivek. Guy.
Yes.
Next to you. What are your leadership takeaways?
Well, I am going to concede to Vivek that, at a strategic corporate level, his lessons are just perfect. I mean, it's about the high road and being honest and transparent. If I may add a slight different twist to this, what I've learned during this pandemic is two things about like real world existence. And thing number one is it is extremely hard to manage a household and children and just domestic stuff. That's number one. I had no appreciation of how hard it is to run a house. And the second thing I learned,
keep that in mind when we invite Karen with us here. So then we are going to have a real discussion on both sides of the equation.
Now, the flip side of that is I also learned, and I had no idea, how satisfying it is to do chores and stuff around the house. That it's not always about making keynote speeches, and it's not always about posts on social media and 10,000 people read it and all that kind of stuff. I kind of hesitate to admit to you, I started mopping our kitchen floor every night. I just found that enormously satisfying. And then I started watching videos about how to optimize the loading of our Miele dishwasher. So, where you put the plates. And I learned that there's a rack on top of the bowls so that you could put more cups that are short. And so I've studied dishwashing, I've studied floor cleaning, I've studied mopping. I'm an expert in vacuum cleaning now. My wife is truly amazed. And I am an expert in P&G, what form of Dawn you should use. And I have to tell you, I have found that enormously satisfying. So
we just lost 100 of the industry attendees, but most probably we're gonna have 100,000 of the rest. Guy, it's impossible to follow you. You say so many brands in a second. If I count the brands you've mentioned since the very beginning of this show, you started with the G. Strauss and Amazon, and now Miele. I can't believe you were through the whole spectrum.
Yeah, but I mentioned SAP the most, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I would like to invite now with us dear guests, already second time in the studio with WEBIT Virtual. Yesterday, she was part of the leading media panel and media forum. Today, she's joining us, representing the audience, and of course, her questions. Let me introduce her. Look who she is.
Karen Leland is the president of Sterling Marketing Group, a branding, marketing, and color strategy and implementation firm where she works on building stronger personal, business, and team brands. Karen has worked with a highly diverse group of industries, and she is also the best-selling author of 9 books.
Karen, welcome again.
Thank you.
For
It's
joining.
so nice to be here again.
So wonderful to have you here again. We might get accustomed to that.
I would love that.
Thank you so
learn
much,
so
Karen.
much every time I'm with you all.
Indeed, such a great discussion, and I look forward to make it even more intriguing. Let's spice it up with the questions that you got ready for our participants here.
Wonderful. Well, I think,
So,
and I'm going to ask some questions of my own, and then I've got some great questions from people who tweeted in some questions. All right.
Great.
So I think one
Great.
of my first questions is and it's for both of you. How do you feel that customers' expectations of brands have changed during this time, and how good a job are brands doing at meeting or exceeding or not meeting those expectations? So, Guy, you want to go first?
Sure. So Karen, first I want to know, is your apartment always that clean? I mean, wow, I just...
Okay, I'm going to tell you the truth.
No, you are really obsessed.
No. My apartment, number one, is always this clean. But number two, I was cracking up when you were talking about learning to clean, because I do a lot of stuff, but I generally didn't clean my own apartment. It took me an hour to figure out which cleaning products were for the bathtub, which cleaning products were for the sink. Now I am a freaking expert at cleaning my apartment.
So that's not a fake Zoom background. That's really
that is not a fake Zoom background.
Oh, I forget what you asked.
Oh, what
my
the
God.
question was? Okay, the question was, do you think that consumers' expectations of brands have changed in this time? And how good a job are brands doing at meeting, exceeding, or falling short of those expectations?
My answer is, I think that for any reasonable person, your expectations of a brand have been decreased. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I think that any reasonable person would say that, well, we're in a pandemic, and so employees have to be more careful. There are probably fewer employees. This is not a time to be on your high horse pissed off at everybody. This is a time where you should be more empathetic. So, I'm going to break Vivek's record for mentioning brands. Until this thing started a few months ago, I had never used Instacart. Okay, never. But for 3 months, I have not been in a grocery store. And so my expectations for Instacart were basically non-existent. I had never used it. And it started where you placed an order on Instacart and you waited 5 days before they would fill the order. Well, now it's 2 hours. So 2 hours from now, I can place an order at Safeway and it'll be at my house. And so I'm just thrilled. Amazon has still shipped things pretty much on time, because every day I buy a new form of floor cleaner or vacuum cleaner. And I have been delighted that even in this pandemic, where literally it is a risk to deliver something, it's a risk to go shopping in Safeway for me, people are still doing it. So my expectations were low and they have been vastly exceeded. I'm quite happy.
I think that's a really interesting point, because it's funny, in New York, it's the opposite. We used to get our groceries in 2 hours. Now it takes 3 days, which is fine. As you said, we all understand. And I do think, by the way, a shout out to all those people that deliver stuff. I mean, in New York, we live on deliveries. That's how we get things for the most part. And those people that deliver are true heroes. But it's interesting. You're talking about that kind of expectation. What about things like, for example, credit card companies, where consumers are calling and credit card companies aren't necessarily working out a deal with them about late charges, or, interest. What about those kind of expectations where you're not seeing brands flexing to the economic situation that we're in? I'm hearing a lot of complaining about that from consumers in the work that I do.
Huh. I that
Wow,
one.
I stumped the expert.
Yeah,
responsibility in this time, or do you think they don't have a responsibility to actually change and be flexible with their policies and procedures based on the current set of circumstances?
well, my mama once told me, be nice to people on the way up because you're going to see them again on the way down.
Yep.
So I would say that, if there was ever a time to be open and transparent and flexible, it is now.
Yeah.
Because I think people will remember. I will remember the brands that. Now I will remember Instacart for a long time, and Amazon and Home Depot has these free deliveries. I mean, these are the vendors that I will continue to do business with for a long time.
Yeah, and I think that's part, and Vivek, I want to ask you the same question. I think that's part of the point, is that if you're showing up as a vendor, you're not going to be well remembered. But if you're showing up as a resource or a partner, you're going to be much more fondly remembered. Vivek, I'd love to hear your point of view on this.
Yeah, so Karen, couple of years ago, we actually did a study to see what was happening specifically with many of the companies that were going digital in terms of how they were reaching consumers. And what we found was that there was a very distinct set of things, specific things that were happening in terms of how end users, consumers of these brands were viewing these companies, both traditional companies as well as these new upstart digital companies. What we found was that most of brand marketing in the past has been about how do I improve the perception of my brand, which is how do I really get into the minds of my customers, right? What we found these digital companies doing was how do I actually influence and be meaningful in the lives of my end users?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't look at necessarily their brand presence ending at the purchase, but rather they looked at their brand image and their brand perception going all the way towards product use and potentially renewals. We also found that those companies that did that were more successful because they were really making a difference in people's lives. So if you translate that to the situation today, where everyone's lives have been disrupted, and if you look at the fact that yes, of course, the needs have changed because of this disruption. So even if you take a simple example of people working from home, which is a huge issue for many people, right? So we don't necessarily, SAP doesn't necessarily serve end consumers, but we serve customers that serve end consumers. But we're seeing this as a common issue, which is people have a tough time working from home, other than obviously Guy, who's been taking on lots of new skills. But I think if you look at that, if you translate that and say, well, what can SAP do to serve the needs of, yes, of course, we're in the business software arena. We help these businesses perform at their best, but what can we do for their employees? So, in a very non-traditional way, for instance, we took this example of bring your child to work day, which is something, there's a tradition of this for the last 20 years. And we basically put together a virtual program, pulling in, experts and celebrities and entertainers that we had access through our network. And we put together a virtual event. And the response that we got from our customers was unbelievable, because they never expected a brand like SAP to do something like this for them. And it just allowed us and enabled us to basically understand, empathize the fact that many employees and many people were going through these challenges, and that we understood what those challenges were, and we served those challenges in a different way, not just necessarily as a technology company, but as a company that cared. So I think, going back to your question, of course, needs are changing, and you have to be able to recognize them. When you see a common pattern, you pull together a shared network of resources that you have, and you do things that are unexpected, non-traditional, and you do it in service. So it's in service, not for selling. That's sort of the attitude that we have.
Yeah, I think one of the big changes is that, as you just said, is these companies that are focusing on servicing, not selling as the end point are really doing well. I'm just curious, Guy talked about cleaning. We joked about the cleaning, right? I've been baking bread. That's been and then the other day I made homemade butter. I'm not kidding, from cream.
Guys, I started cooking chocolate for my kids.
See?
So I'm now a chocolate master.
Right. No.
Any type of chocolate.
Exactly.
White, brown, black, anything.
Exactly. I'm literally one tin of muffins away from a prairie dress and a mullet haircut. I mean, it is just, I'm just like been baking, whatever. But it's sort of similar to what Guy was saying and Plamen just said. Vic, what have you been finding yourself doing personally that you feel is sort of giving you another perspective on this whole thing that might influence who you are as a leader when we get to whatever the new normal is of this? Well, no, Vivek.
Karen is asking very tricky questions. Hi, Guy.
Well, so I think that was for me, Karen. So, this is not very well known, but I've actually worked from home for SAP for the last 13 years.
Okay.
So working from home and running a global team and being part of a global team that part of it was not new to me at all. So I was, I'm lucky enough to have a home office, very well connected, and so on and so forth. So the working from home aspect was not that hard, but I think understanding the struggles of others in my team who had never experienced that, particularly, people, who are used to going to the office, they don't have necessarily the types of resources that, for instance, I have. Perhaps you're living in a smaller apartment, you're sharing it with other people. I think understanding that and being empathetic to those needs and making sure that we were providing the flexibility, I would say, for people who, for instance, wanted to take a few days off because, frankly, mental health is a huge topic now. And everybody's mental health, to some degree, has been impacted. For me, the other part of it is, and this is more of a personal story, which is my parents still live in India. They're 81 and 79 years old. And they're living in an apartment. India has been under total lockdown in the area that they live in for over 6 or 8 weeks. And they have no help. So these types of new personal situations really help you understand that, while you might take certain things for granted, and, I think as well conditioned as I was personally from working from home, these other dynamics that I was seeing around me were things that were totally different. And so I think as a leader, you have to step up. I think it matures you. And I think it makes you more empathetic. And frankly, I think, it makes you a better person. Forget about being a better leader. It makes you a better person at the end of the day. Yeah. And yes,
Guy,
I have
actually,
by the way, Guy, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Plamen. Yeah. Go ahead.
Guy, did you have something to add?
Well,
Guy?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's hard to follow Vivek, man. I mean, you should have told me that he was so articulate. Shit, man.
I think you're up to the challenge,
Vivek,
Guy.
usually the ladies get the compliments in the studio. This time, Guy is very generous. I should do my turn. Karen, I love your questions.
Okay, thank you, Vivek. I think you're Guy's new Guy crush.
So, Guy, the question for you.
Guy, go ahead.
Oh. Wait, what?
You forgot the question? Well, I think Guy answered it originally when he talked about the cleaning. But, I want to say the thing.
I have one point.
Yeah,
I have one point to add. So obviously I've come to appreciate the challenge of domesticity. But another thing I've come to appreciate is the difficulty of being an educator, because I have never had to take a more active role in the education of my kids. Holy cow. This is, you think it's like, okay, so, Google it. What's the problem? It ain't that simple. Oh my God.
It's knocked you down a few pegs, hasn't it?
And I will tell you, it may be contradictory to what I said, but all these parents who are so anti electronic games that it's people should be outside and meeting face to face and interacting and performing athletics and doing all this kind of stuff. And electronic games are going to shoot 'em up games are going to ruin your mind and change your philosophy and, make you into a violent person. All I can say is thank God for Call of Duty and Fortnite. Oh, God.
All right, Guy, let's go
enough,
to the big
enough. I'm
boring
going to some
topics.
other
Karen, if you
questions.
allow me, I would like to have a question for the two of you. Let's
Yeah.
talk business. All right. I know I have to go clean after this show, so let's not talk about
I
this
have
anymore.
a great one for
Let's go
Twitter.
back to work.
Okay. So this is from Missy Connor.
I will just have a question, if you don't mind, Karen, to all of you, and then we go for the audience.
Okay.
Brand, marketing, innovation. These are the three terms that we built the title of this show today together, and evolution. Please give me your thoughts and vision on the simple question: did marketing change forever? Vivek?
Yes, I believe so. I think for a long time we have been talking about digitizing marketing as well as many other aspects of the business. So this has been going on for many, many years. And I think COVID-19 is fundamentally, accelerated that digitization of marketing. I think more and more what you're going to see is companies recognizing that events like we are doing here today are here to stay. I'm not certainly saying that, physical convening is going to go away. But clearly what you're going to see is in terms of how you reach customers, how you actually engage communities, and how you pull networks together, in many cases, digital tools and technologies are here to stay. I think there are obviously some timeless pieces related to how you build a brand, how you build perception, how you get into the lives of people. Those are obviously going to stay. And I think, if you were to break down marketing into the art and science of marketing, right? I think there's an art of marketing, and the art of marketing is timeless. That's my view. And the science of marketing will change. You have more data available to you. You're able to do many, many interesting things with the data that's at your disposal. People, if you ask, I used to run strategy for marketing for SAP. If you'd asked me when we laid out the Vision 2020 in 2017, whether something like COVID-19 was part of that vision, and were we prepared for something like this? The answer is no. But it's here, and so that acceleration is going to happen. It will be changed forever, and I think it'll be changed forever in a really good way. So,
digital transformation doesn't sound like something that will happen sometimes. It happens full time now. Even from a 15,000 people offline event into the same number of online for 2-3 weeks, and now every day instead of once per year. That's a digital transformation, and we do what we preached for quite a lot of time. Karen, what would you say? Do you think that marketing is never going to be the same again?
Never. And I really like the way, Vivek, you distinguished it between the art and the science, because I think the art stays the same, but I think it's never going to be the same again. I think the science of it is permanently changed. Yeah, absolutely. Plamen, should I take some questions from the Twitter?
Only if you allow me to hear and our viewers to hear the answer of Guy.
Oh yes, sorry.
For the future of marketing.
Sorry, Guy.
And where is it heading?
Like the two prior very wise people, I also second this motion that yes, marketing has changed forever. I think that whenever there's a radical factor like a pandemic and a change like this, just an earthquake in what's happening, it's going to change who the winners and the losers are. It's going to show who can pivot and move and adjust to new technologies. I have a funny example that sort of illustrates. So what I tell people right now is the most important question you can ask is, therefore what? And by this, I mean, if you do an analysis, a kind of strategic look at what's happening, no more face-to-face meetings for a while, no more travel, the gig economy, Instacart, all these kind of factors, what's going to happen? You ask yourself, therefore what? And from that, you develop new products and services. So to go back 15 years, if you came to the conclusion that lots of people were going to have phones, that these phones would have cameras on them, and these phones with cameras would be able to share pictures, the question is, therefore what? And you would start Instagram, right? So now I think every entrepreneur, every business owner should ask themselves, based on what you know or what you foretell is going to happen, therefore what? How should you change your business? And I'll give you a funny example. There's an animal sanctuary in Half Moon Bay. It's called Sweet Farm. And so Sweet Farm noticed that everybody's doing Zoom meetings, and most Zoom meetings are boring and they're kind of just, I don't know, just kind of yucky and boring and nothing funny and exciting and nothing to look forward to. So Sweet Farm offers this service called Goat to Meeting, not Go to Meeting, Goat, Goat to Meeting. So you go to Sweet Farm and you can actually book an appearance of a goat or a cow or a llama into your Zoom meeting. And they probably asked themselves the question, Zoom meetings suck for employees. How can we make it better? Therefore, what? Now you can book a llama in your Zoom meeting. I think that's a great example of innovative out of the box thinking.
It's great.
No llamas in our studio, please, if you hear me, right? Now we're about to jump in. It's already only 8 minutes left. I don't know how time slipped away.
It does.
Please, Karen, take some of the questions from the audience because they're waiting to be answered.
Okay, so this is from Missy in the US, and she said, after so many things that you've done in your life and so many great things you've both accomplished, please tell us what's the most difficult thing you've ever done in your life and what helped you then to get through this. So Vivek, please.
Let's see, Vivek, I don't hear you though.
Did we lose him?
Yeah, Vivek?
Am I on now?
Yeah,
you are,
I hear you.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, that's a really, really hard question. And of course, like many of us, there have been very tough situations that each one of us faces. And so for me, I think any tough situation really leads me back to being introspective and thinking about, it's a moment of great clarity for me personally. Whenever I go through a tough time, it almost seems like all of the noise in the background really tends to fade away. And for me, interestingly enough, it comes down to a binary choice of how I want to deal with it. And so a lot of how I want to deal with a particular situation is guided by my own internal values. And so whether it's a situation, I came to America as an immigrant many, many years ago with literally nothing in my pocket. I came here on a one-way ticket. I didn't know anybody in the country. And, I started my career at Clemson University working at the university post office as a student for $3.35 now. So I think that, over that course of time, what I've learned is that at the end of the day, it really comes down to people. It's not what you know. It really is not what you know. It's really how you're able to relate to people, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends, whether it's your colleagues, whether it's your coworker, whatever it might be. So it comes down to people. So in my view, I always try to put people first in any situation that I face. And there have been lots of problems, as all of us do, whether it's, a situation in the family, whether it's a personal situation, whether it's a situation where literally you don't have any money and you don't know when your next paycheck's going to come from. You just dig in deep and you just try to stay as true to yourself as you can. And, I do have a faith system and a belief, and most of the time it's worked out pretty well for me.
That's wonderful. Thank you. There was actually a
Thank you.
specific question for Guy that I wanted to read. This is from Jessica in the UK. And she says, Guy, I have heard about your 10, 20, 30 rule, but I don't know a lot about it. Please tell us more.
Okay. So
She should read it. Anyway, of course, thank you for asking this question from UK, Guy.
first of all, I'm not related to Jessica. Okay. So the Guy Kawasaki rule of 10, 20, 30. The Guy Kawasaki rule of 10, 20, 30 is that in a slide presentation, the optimal number of slides is 10.
Huh.
You should have the ability to explain all 10 slides in 20 minutes. And the smallest font that should be anywhere in the presentation is 30 points.
Interesting.
So the first two have to do with speed, that you can't get through 50 slides in a presentation, so have less slides and have a less expectation for time. The reason why I say that you should have a big font is because a big font forces you to only put the key text on your slide. You can't put whole sentences. And as an extreme, Steve Jobs, when he had a slide, he used 190 points. So, that's 6 times larger than my recommendation. Now, Steve Jobs is the black sheep, purple cow outlier. We're not Steve Jobs. So I don't think we can get away with 190 points, but 30 points. If you took all your slides and selected all the text and made all the text 30 points and then cut until everything fit, you would be doing yourself a great service. So the key for me for a slide is you have a slide with 3 or 4 words. The audience reads it in 2 or 3 seconds and boom, they're back to looking at you, not at your slides. If you look at many people's presentations, there's text and sentences and charts and all that crap. And so they're looking at that, trying to figure out what the hell are you trying to say? And what you really want them to do is pay attention to you, not the slides. So 10 slides, 20 minutes, 30-point font. And I have one more recommendation. Make your background black, because black shows gravitas. It shows seriousness. It shows that you are a ninja presentation master, that you know how to select the master slide and you know how to make a background black, and you pick this nice, fat, legible, sans serif white font. Black is the new black. Okay?
I can't believe we were talking about vacuum cleaners, about ovens, and while we have that amazing people here sharing so much knowledge and so much wisdom. And the black is the new black, which is very important. I believe at the end, we should have talked more about this. Now, we have only 2 minutes. I would love you to wrap up. Vivek said something, and Guy, as many times during this panel, said, yes, I reconnect to that. At the end of the day, it's all about people. So you say marketing is changing forever. This means people change forever. 30 seconds. Vivek.
Yeah. So I first of all, I really appreciate Guy's advice on presentation. I think a lot of us could use it, including myself. So thank you for that. And I think, from my perspective, look, we are going to get through this crisis. There is an end period to this. And I feel like the lessons that we are learning, which is, getting back to some of the basics, getting back to the foundation of us as a society being connected with each other more. I hope that stays. So even though we might be socially distanced, I think we are emotionally connected. And I hope that we are able to do that post-crisis. In terms of brands, I think, brands in these types of situations, what we are going to see is that bigger brands, those that are authentic and relevant to people's needs today, are actually going to accelerate and move forward, and they're going to become much stronger as we move ahead. So in terms of just thinking strategically about what is happening post-crisis, you're going to see some extraordinary brands, whether they're digital or traditional, those that have stayed the course in serving the consumers that they serve at the point at which the need is the greatest. those are the brands that are going to grow and thrive.
Thank you so much, Vivek. Karen.
Well, I used to run a management consulting firm. And as you know, I do a lot of work with CEOs and executives on their personal brands. And I think what I want to say is that I think both Guy and Vivek have demonstrated exactly what's needed of leaders right now and exactly what's needed in branding, which is not only the deep expertise and knowledge, but really a great humanity and a great
It's all about the big heart.
I think the vulnerability and the personalness that they both shared today is really the quality that's the most needed, whether it's a personal brand or a business brand. And I sincerely really am inspired by both of you and your ability to do that.
Thank you so much, Karen. Beautiful words for a beautiful, beautiful discussion and great people with us. Guy.
Yes. Thank you. So another piece of wisdom that my parents taught me is never ask people to do something that you would not do. And every brand in the world should adopt that perspective. So, if you wouldn't fly in a crowded airplane, don't ask your customers to fly in a crowded airplane. Don't ask your employees to fly in a crowded airplane. If you wouldn't go and work in a shop or a restaurant with lots of contact with outsiders, don't expect other people who own restaurants and shops to open up. So a very good sort of North Star right now is, if you wouldn't do it, don't expect other people to do it. And that would be of course, I'm assuming you're not a psychopath, but if you wouldn't do it, don't expect other people to do it.
Thank you so much, Guy. Thank you. Thank you to all of you, Vivek, Guy, Karen. It was a fantastic experience for me to be with you and to listen to your wisdom and vision. Thank you so much. And because you were giving us this motion of positivity, I would like to finish with something positive here. There was this great person called La Rochefoucauld who was saying that music is the language of a heart full of love. And I cannot here stay but mention the chair of WEBIT Brand Innovation Program, who is Raja Rajamanar from MasterCard, who brought sound and music in the expression of the brands. And actually, he just won the awards of that. So I think that in that perception, brands will start singing, create the music for the people to touch their hearts much more. Saying that, I would like to sing my favorite song. It was a fantastic meeting, and I look forward to see you next week again. We start Tuesday with we have a special edition with startups and investors, our usual founders games, investors demo day, presenting the best of the best in the world of startups. Then on Wednesday, we are going to be having a special edition of the Cyber Tech Week. Actually, the whole week is a Cyber Tech Week. There is 30-fold increase of cyber attacks in the world during COVID time. We shall be getting very deep dive into this topic and explore it with the chair of WEBIT Cyber Tech panel and program, Natalia Oropeza, the Chief Cybersecurity Officer of Siemens. And she will be joined here by the Chief Cybersecurity Officer and Senior Vice President of VMware, Tom Korn, and with Bruce Schneider, Chief of Security Architecture at INRAP. And of course, we're going to have our media panel as part of the Cyber Tech Week. And we are hosting journalists from USA Today, from Euronews, and from Wired, to name some of them. Thank you, all of you, for being with us. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And I see you next week as part of WEBIT Virtual Cyber Tech Week. Thank you.
This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual.